Have you been in a position where you need to import a project into Microvellum, but all you have is a spreadsheet full of cabinet names and sizes? Or maybe you're a company that handles the manufacturing of products, and your orders received are coming in from an XLS spreadsheet. Now, rather than starting from scratch in Toolbox and just using those spreadsheets as a reference, you can import them directly into the software using Microvellum's tool Import XLS File. With this, you can create a streamlined process that will help minimize costly mistakes during order entry and increase the amount of time that you have during fabrication. And it's real easy. You don't even need to know how to set up the logic in Excel to start using it. Everything is pretty much done for you in a template that you can download from Microvellum's Knowledge Network. Follow along and I'll show you. Here's the Knowledge Network. And by starting your search with the word import, you'll be able to find this article on an overview of an XLS project import. I'll just quickly go over some of the key areas. These are the columns needed on the first sheet tab called Order in the worksheet. At the top, you'll have the project name, then the list of the products, sizes, and quantity. The next sheet tab is Products, which can be all the products in your Toolbox library. They're used in a drop-down list on the order sheet. The rest of the article will be covered in this video, but it might also be a good idea for you to take a few minutes and read it on your own. This is where it can be found in the Microvellum palette, and here are the downloads. This is the project import file. Now, I haven't made any changes to it, so we should be seeing the same thing. This column here is the drop-down list, looking to the names on sheet products. Now select on that sheet, and you can enter all the products you want in column A. Now make sure that the names match exactly how they appear in the Toolbox library so the import works correctly. Now let's go ahead and add a couple upper cabinets. And now change the name of the other ones to match the foundation library. When this template was originally created, the foundation library hadn't been released yet, so that's why we're making these changes. Now, since we're going to import this into Toolbox, go back to the first sheet and update the product description. At this point, you can update any sizes or the spec group that will be assigned as they get imported. Column H is for the room number, and columns Q through N are for prompts you want to override the default value from the library. The job data and order data sheet are also data-driven. You can change the project name here, and in this sheet, you don't need to change anything. Just make sure that you have enough of these cells with 0 to cover the number of products inside of the project. This mapping sheet is where you can add more prompts you want to have used to overwrite default project property values. Just like the product names, make sure that the prompt names match exactly how they've been defined in Toolbox. For example, these here are not called out this way anymore in the foundation library. They're now finished ends. So let's go ahead and change that for both of these. The 1 under those prompts means the finished ends will be turned on. You can also import new project and room properties that can show on your title blocks, or set new values for global variables, the project wizard, and the door wizard. Now the hardware and material wizards will not be updated with this file. Changing those will need to be done after the project is imported. Now we can close and save and go back into Toolbox. Under Toolbox Setup, select Import XLS File and find the file we want to import. Okay, now the import is finished, we can take a look and see what we got. First, into the list of projects. There's the new project, ABC Company Project. Open that up, then into the project properties. I see the test architect name came through. Notice we have 2 other property names that didn't import, and that's because addendum and scope of services are not defined properties in Toolbox. Here's the list of the 11 user-defined project properties that can be imported from this spreadsheet. And now for the project wizard. These didn't change from the template settings, and the reason for that is because of the specification group. The products are using the default spec group from the Toolbox template, so if the names that have been entered in column D don't exist in the template, the property values won't change. I want to go ahead and delete this project and just go through the process again. This time making sure that we have the correct information. FYI, you can't delete your current project, so just double click on another one to open it up, and now we can delete that project import. If a prompt name occurs in this area here, it will look to the cells below for a value. If left blank, it will use the default value in the product. I went ahead and added a new prompt to show you how something that has a combo box control type works. Make sure that the name entered here is one of the names listed inside of the product prompt. If these are blank, there'll be no change to the component insert. You can make this spreadsheet your own, as long as you follow the guidelines in that article on our knowledge base. I got a little fancy with mine, adding drop-down lists of the spec groups I currently have in my Toolbox library, and some new variable names. I chose a few from the Project Wizard and Door Wizard that use radio buttons. For the value to change properly on these prompts, the first and second radio buttons need to be listed. I'll change the spec group on these so we can see the difference between one and the other. Enter 1 for the prompt needing to be turned on, and 0 for the other radio buttons in the group. This sheet is also something I did for my personal template and not necessary to go through this process, but it does make it real easy to have defined ranges to use when filling up that order sheet. Now time to import this next project. We'll go ahead and see what happens if we leave these blank. And just like before, import XLS file. Select the correct one. And there we go. I called this one RJ Sample Job. Open up the project properties. And this one's looking a lot better. There's the job number, the address, cabinet size defaults changed, even the toe kick height because it was in that column of variable names. So that's all good there. If we change the spec group, we can see if the other variables in the door wizard updated. If you're curious what control type is used for some of these variables, you can select one, then right-click and show properties. Now let's open up the product list so we can see the actual products that were imported. Here's that upper two-door that had a blank height and depth. Right-click on the product to show the product prompts. And by leaving those blank, you can see they're looking to the values of the product variables. In this case, the default upper height and depth. We can check out a couple of the other products just to verify what we set up in the spreadsheet did transfer over to the products. These are using the component inserts that are different than the default insert from the specification group. And if we were to bring in a new product from the list, change the spec group so it looks to another set of variables, we can see it is using the default component insert we called out in the project variables sheet of this file. And that's how importing an XLS spreadsheet works in Microvellum Toolbox. All right, well, that'll complete another training session. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to check out some of our other training content on microvellum.com and our Microvellum YouTube channel. I'll see you next time.